Jersey as world champion. Museeuw has had problems. He had a problem to run, had his back wheel run into by Boscardin. They got their bikes all tied up. He's chasing now to get back into this group at the moment, and they're trying to reform whilst our three leaders are down the road here, and here he's still trying to get back.
Well, information coming to us over race radio, in fact, that Johan Museeuw is 20 seconds off the back of that group. But the thing is, the cars are spread all over the place here, and he's going to have a very hard time getting back on because the chase is on at the front. We've got two groups of 3 riders trying to steal the race. This is the leading group of 3. The Italian rider who came across there, we can see, in fact, is doing a great job. He went straight to the front. Franco Ballerini in the light blue jersey for Mapei. Now he's working with this group, Rolf Sorensen. Behind, we've got a chasing group of 3, and then the main field, led by Claudio Chiappucci, trying to bring it all back together. So Sorensen is really in a great position at the moment, while Museeuw, who was looking very comfortable indeed, is now well out of the race.
Somehow I don't think, because he's got Boscardin who fetched him down as company, there's going to be much love lost between those two, trying to come back to the main field, because Boscardin is going to lose nothing by just sort of swanning along, whereas Museeuw is going to be out of the shack for a place on the podium. These 3 looking good at the moment, but really Ballerini certainly is strong enough, I think, to ride with Sorensen, but the odd man here is the Skriniar rider, isn't he, to be in this little group. He just went across like he was waiting for the chance to go, and he's done it.
Well, Davide Casarato is a very young rider, 25 years of age, and I don't think he's had a victory this year, looking back through my records. In fact, the Skriniar team has ridden well. They've been a very competitive team, but he himself has not been one of the top winners on that team. Ballerini now, I think, is going to be liberated, and very soon he'll get information from his team car to explain to him just exactly what has been going out on the race route at the moment. He will know, in fact, that Museeuw is a long way behind. He'll know that Museeuw is having a very difficult time trying to get back into the race, but now the race has completely changed, with Mapei putting a different rider into the lead.
Well, Casarato was 3rd actually in the Grand Prix of Wallonie when Konishev got the victory up on the Muur climb when he went away from Madouas, and Casarato went off on his own, closed that gap down, so the man has got a certain amount of form right now, and again he left it late in the Grand Prix of Wallonie, and I think you got a 3rd there once, didn't you, some time ago?
I think that was a long time ago, David. You must have looked back into the records. I think
they were dusty.
I think there was a lot of dust on those. Peter van Petegem, though, is the man who could still finish in the top 10 of most of these classics. A very good rider. He was the Belgian national champion back in 1991, the amateur champion, before turning professional. He's had a lot of help from Ferdy van den Houten, who used to be a top team manager with PDM and also with Panasonic. He knows this area very well. He's starting to get into the area from where he comes from, so he knows just exactly what these little climbs are like, and he may well have just, in fact, caught them at the right time here, because I think he's just on the tails of this leading group of 3.
Now, just a quick word about TVM, and you've, Paul, been involved with many teams, both as a rider and in your time with the Motorola team on the PR side. It always struck me that the TVM team seemed to have been, once they're allowed to do what they want, it seems a very laid-back team, great lot of lads. I went to see them on the Tour de France a couple of years ago. They said, we may not be the first team in the race, but we're the best good-looking team. And somehow they seem to be able to produce riders, do this, and different commanders seem to have different styles, eh?
They definitely do have a laid-back style, but when it comes to the racing, they're always very serious, because I think they enjoy themselves. They're a very friendly team together. They get on well together, and they're prepared to, when it comes down to races like this, work for each other, because it's sort of a one-for-all and all-for-one situation. And Peter van Petegem has been one of those riders, giving a lot to the other men in the squad, and I think today he's seen his chance. He's come along very well over the last couple of years. He's had 2 wins this year so far, riding very well indeed. He's picked the right moment here. He knows that very soon these riders will be heading down to the bottom of the Muur de Gramont, or the Muur van Geraardsbergen, as they say in Flemish.
Well, there we are then. That's Ballerini on the screen in the Mapei colours, and this is the chasing twosome way off the back, following that clash when Boscardin and Museeuw had the unfortunate problems when I think Boscardin just ran into the back of Museeuw's wheel, locked his handlebars into his tyres, and allowed this little group to get even further away at the front. The man in the orange and white on the front is Sorensen. Just behind him is Ballerini in the blue. The yellow colours going through, Van Petegem for TVM, and the orange colours are those of Casarato of the Skriniar team. So the nice little group of riders here, the sun beating down on their backs on this, the Tour of Flanders, and it really is up for grabs at the moment. Sorensen's been the most consistent man in the breakaway group, who just joined us recently. He went away with Jalabert, who went through a rather bad patch and has stayed away. The rest of the riders have come up to him now. And you can see that group behind him not too far, actually. And it could be now without Museeuw. In fact, Museeuw, I think, and Boscardin are likely perhaps, Paul, to close that gap down. And we'll wait to just see. And I think Chamil is moving through. He look how fast he's going. In the black and red, Chamil starts to go on the front. This man certainly has got a power in his legs, and he won't want Museeuw with him either. This is a cracking race.
Well, Van Bon there in second position in the orange jersey of Rabobank. He too knows that he's got to try and slow down any chase or any organised chase behind, because his man Rolf Sorensen is in the front. And if we can just hold that helicopter a little bit further back, we could just see the position of Johan Museeuw. This is Yaroslav Ekimov, riding this year for the US Postal Service team, riding very well indeed. That win in the time trial of Paris-Nice showed that he has got great form, and I think he's much more liberated now riding for the American team. They have also a laid-back style, no pressure at all to the racing, so these riders can just think about their own objectives and then come to form just at the right time.
Yeah, I was talking this morning to Johnny Buysse, their team manager, and he was saying, in fact, that they changed Ekimov's ambitions for the year, allowing him to rest between certain races, not doing all of them, and they are determined to get the points to take them up the UCI list, but they don't think they'll get enough to get into the Tour de France automatically. But they're hoping with the early season successes they may get a wild card into the Tour de France, and that's what they're racing for at the moment. And they've got no set race they're going to win, but certainly with the way Baffy's been going and Ekimov's been going, the team is looking jolly good at the moment. It's nice to see they're riding American bikes on the old Trek bicycles as well. The Seiko team we haven't seen in this race so far riding Cannondale bikes in America. So this 1997 season, Paul, seems to be quite a big change, doesn't it?
Well, certainly, I think that's a great thing for the US Postal Service too, to try and get out there, win a lot of races, create a high profile for themselves, but they have moved up a long way in the UCI team standings. They're currently lying 15th in the classification, so they have done a good job so far with the points that they've won along the route. But interesting to see that still nobody wants to take the race by the horns in that group behind there. They don't want to put themselves on the line to chase it down, and it's a very tentative situation when we have these four leaders here. In fact, Sorensen deciding now to put the pressure on at the front. Van Petegem jumped across there very well indeed, and they're now on the road, which is actually heading down towards Geraardsbergen, and they'll come to the bottom of the Muur. And that is when, if anybody has a weakness, you're going to crack, because that climb really is tough. I tell the real keen cyclists out there that when these men are racing up this climb, they're nowadays looking at a gear of 38 with a 25-tooth sprocket at the back. So it gives you an idea of just how steep it is over those cobblestones.
My eyes are just watering thinking about it. But keen cyclists, I know a lot of people have come over from Great Britain in the coaches to watch the racing here. It's a great event to go backwards and forwards, and some of them make their way across on their own or in cars with friends or see what's going on. I met up with Roger Stokes last night, ex-Wolverhampton Wheelers, now riding with the LW Paragon, and said hello to all his friends back in Great Britain. And he reminded me, actually rode with me in cyclocross way back in the old days, the Gannet and such races as that. But it's nice to see the Britshouse alongside the road. We had an early activity as far as we're concerned when Jeremy Hunt went for an early break, but he's out of the race now at the moment as we get towards the back end, and still anything might happen. Stay with us here on Eurosport.
If it's reliability you're after, the Tulip Vision line has lots in store. Powerful performance, a state-of-the-art interior and a stylish exterior. And you'll be surprised how little it costs to own one. The Tulip Vision line servers have the Intel Pentium Pro processor inside. Tulip computers, the benefits of European quality.
Why travel along highways or express lanes? In Thailand, we know a path that weaves behind waterfalls, where we can feel the ancient mountain winds and catch the sweet scent of hill-tribe fires. Why hurry when the journey is as magical as the destination?
Ask anyone to draw a star. Most of the time, you'll see this. Perceptions can be misleading. It's time to take a good look at the new Hyundai, where reality exceeds expectations. Hyundai.
Zeit für mich, alles wie es mir gefällt. Ich umarm die ganze Welt. Endlich Zeit für mich. Oh, oh, endlich ich.
Licher aus den Herzen der Natur.
The four men in the lead at the moment, Ballerini, Sorensen, Casalato and Van Petegem, heading in towards the final big climbs of the day. That Muur, Muur, the Bosberg climb and then in towards the finish. But can they stay away? Last time check we had 18 seconds to a group. In fact, the interesting thing is they've been calling this the group of Chamille because Museeuw, having had that problem when he crashed with Boscardin, is chasing hard to get back, and they're putting Chamille's name up as the man who is the one to watch in this group here coming through. And they're all now taking in turns to roll through. There's last year's Victor Bartoli on the front at the moment. So it's very interesting indeed as the pressure is on to try and close that gap on our leaders, Ballerini, Sorensen, Casarato and Van Petegem. I'm very pleased to have with me today Paul Sherwin. If you've been listening to him for the last half an hour, 1 hour, 2.5 hours, I'm looking to be turned on. Paul, nice to see you over here. Exactly tell me before we go back to it, what are you doing over here? Because you're involved with Americans or something, aren't you?
Yeah, I work for an American company who puts together a lot of packages on the classics, the Tour of France, Tour of Italy, the Tour of Spain, and they put these together and we make a nice little program and sell it on the other side of the water.
And they come across here. We've seen them all over the place, and I know particularly during the Tour de France when we see them come across as well, and bring their bikes and watch the bike racing, and certainly they've got interest in this group here, US Postal Service. And I asked the US people, what the hell are you doing? They said, well, we actually have a big business in Europe, so that's very interesting for them to get their name known across in Europe by sponsoring a racing team, and they've got Ekimov in this particular group at the moment, the chasing group, and they all seem at the moment, Paul, to be taking turns to come through. We didn't see that before, did we? When Museeuw was in there seemed to be a sort of reticence to help him.
We didn't say that before. We didn't see it before, but we actually said it. We expected these riders to start working before they came to the bottom of the Muur de Grammont, because everybody knows that is the next most important strategic climb of the event. After the Oude Kwaremont, the Muur de Grammont is really where the race can be decided and won, which is where, in fact, Michele Bartoli won the event last year when he attacked on the Muur and went away to win alone. Interesting to see, sitting 3 from the back there with the grey shorts of the Française de Jure team, Maximilien Chianri, looking very comfortable indeed. But as we've said, all of these riders now starting to work in 2 very good lines, and in fact holding that leading group of 4 riders to around about 18 seconds. No more information, in fact down to 14 seconds. No more information coming to us for the moment as to the position of Johan Museeuw, who must be chasing out of the back of this group with, I presume, his friend Bruno Boscardin.
Friend, he won't send him a Christmas card, will he, my only child? If you didn't see it earlier on, Boscardin was the man who ran into Museeuw's back wheel and caused all sorts of trouble and took him out of the race at the moment. But it's alive in the whole race now, because it's virtually every man for himself, and we're seeing strings of riders here taking in turns to do a bit on the front, then the next man comes through as such. And that 14-second gap, they're just watching these riders, but I'm told time and time again by the expert professional racing cycle, ex-professional racing cyclists, Paul, like yourself, that they'll often hold a group like this, because once you catch them, they start jumping around. Do you think they're just leaving them there to wait until we get that next climb to close the gap and jump?
That is a control thing that does happen sometimes. You'll leave a breakaway out just hovering in front of you, because that keeps a certain amount of control in the group behind. But that happens normally when you have a team who is chasing. They don't want to catch a group too soon, because they'll wait then, because counterattacks will come. I think at the moment what is happening, these riders know now that we're probably only 2 to 3 kilometers away from the bottom of the Muur de Grammont, and what they're trying to judge in their chase is to catch this leading group of 4 riders just before they get to the bottom slopes, so that they all have an equal chance when they in fact do attack the climb.
Well, that final climb will come just some 16 kilometers from the finish. In English money, that's about 10 miles to go, and if you suddenly want to nip out and pay a visit to see a man about a dog or make yourself a cup of tea, do so, but come back and watch that last bit, because it'll all explode then. These four men out on the front may stay out there, they may get caught. It's anybody's race yet, as still the pressure's on. Ballerini on the front now, going away, looking over his shoulder to see Van Petegem coming through, and then the Casarotto in the orange colour for the Scrigno team, which to me is a surprise, this package, but always those lads from the Scrigno team have been surprising me all last year, and they're always prepared to sort of pop up and do something, aren't they?
Rolf Sorensen's been very interested over the last few kilometres on what's going on behind the race. He's missed his turn on several occasions, looking back over his shoulder just to see what the gap is on that group behind. Let's not forget that he was in the original breakaway of two riders with Laurent Jalabert. They built up a very interesting lead before, in fact, Jalabert cracked on the climb of Berendries, and still the gap is coming down very slowly indeed. It's down to 10 seconds, and they're about 1.5 kilometres from the bottom of the Muur now, so that big group behind may have judged it just right.
So 17 kilometres to go, 10 seconds the gap then, these four riders on the front, and when we hit that very rocky climb, I've only seen it and driven up it, Paul. I've not actually ridden my bike up it. Explain to the viewers before we get there what the hell it's like.
It's a very hard climb because, in fact, by the time you get to the cobbles, you've already run out of momentum. Just along here in a short while, they're going to turn right. It's a very flat approach into the centre of the town of Geraardsbergen, and then you take a sharp 90-degree left-hander, and you start climbing straight away. You have to change from a big gear right the way down into a very small gear. You climb up the tarmac to begin with, then you turn right, and that's when the hell really starts. That's when you hit the cobblestones, and that's when, if you're strong, you can put the hammer down and ride away from anybody, because you've got to use every last little bit of energy to get up a climb like the Muur. But as we talk, the gap is still coming down. Now it's down to 8 seconds. They can almost feel the breath of that group behind them.
And surely the change for people who normally ride their bike to and from work, or, you know, just pop down to the shops, the change in that sort of rhythm of your legs must hurt you after 240 kilometres of racing as well.
It's very difficult because in the last 2 hours or so, these riders have been using the maximum gear. It's not been a very supple approach to a ride like this. They've been pounding away on the massive gears along these flat roads. They've been buffeted by the wind, and then once they get to the bottom of the Muur de Grammont, they have to change the complete opposite end of their gear ratios, and they have to then use a very small gear indeed. But that's why, if you're a fresh rider and you're strong, you can still turn the power on when it comes to the Muur de Grammont. And if you aren't, and if you've been hiding in this group of 10 riders, you disappear.
Well, we saw Bartoli last year really just do that. He just rocketed up the climb. He used his strong legs to go away. Museeuw said he pulled his wheel over or broke a spoke. We will never know exactly the truth of what exactly happened. And right now, Museeuw is trying to close that gap down on this group as they now begin to start towards that climb. You say, it suddenly hits you, doesn't it? You're going up and you, wham, and you think, oh my goodness.
Well, here's a chance to see the steepest part of the climb is 20%. This is the tarmac part that they're going up at the moment, and the pace being set to the front by Casarotto. In fact, in second position, Sorensen, keeping an eye on affairs. He doesn't want to lead out because he doesn't want to feel as if he's actually using too much energy. Lying in third position is Franco Ballerini. I think Ballerini is strong. I think when we come to the cobbles, the man who's won Paris-Roubaix is going to try and put the hammer down there, because he'll be worried about the other riders in this group, and he'll feel that with 16 kilometres remaining from the summit, then he has a chance of going away alone. But all that could change as we go to the cobbles, because this group is only now 7 seconds behind.
And people like Chamil, very strong men, love the cobbles, could close the gap and go across it. Chambry has been, sitting lying doggo, hasn't he? There's so much this time open still in this race. It's amazing. Look, they're coming up now, that little group behind. So many top men in that group who could still close that gap on this final climb. This really is a tough one. Even the riders up front, I think, here are prepared also to allow that gap to close down. There must be in your heart and in your stomach like the butterflies, eh?
They're waiting for it, and they're on it now. This is the cobble section. Ballerini now has decided that he's going to come to the front. He wants to control the rhythm now, because this is the part when you can't let somebody else dictate the rhythm of the race to you. The best place to be is in first place, and you can see Casarotto in the back with the orange jersey there. He's suffering. Probably the first time in his life he's ever raced up the Muur de Grammont, finding out what it's all about. He's losing 2 or 3 lengths there, but Ballerini has really got the power on David. He's very strong indeed. Sorensen starting to suffer, but Van Petegem just sitting right in the wheel.
And you're right, Casarotto begin to drop off the pace now, and these cobbles are unbelievable. You can't imagine what it's like. I've driven up that one. It nearly shook my false seat out of my head. You imagine what it's like riding a bike up here, and suddenly the gap is coming down. You can see that gap is coming down, and Shamil there, what, 1, 2, 3, back to the front.
Well, Shamil was third from the front there. In fact, Bartoli was making a move. This is where he made his winning move last year. He knows what the Muur de Grammont is like, and he's coming across there, and in fact, he may well have judged his effort just to the right moment. There in 5th position in the road is Bartoli. On his wheel is Joe Plancart, and just behind him, André Schmil. Maximilian Chianri, and you can see, David, just how hard it is as you go over the top of the climb there onto the flat.
Casarato really struggling in the orange jersey, and still Ballerini looking very strong at the front. You haven't got much of a gap there at the moment on Van Petegem. Maybe enough, maybe not enough. And the one man who could probably go fast on the flat, Sorensen, still back there in 3rd spot, biding his time. He did so much early on to stay away now. Casarato in the orange is beginning to struggle on the climb here. The rest of that group now close that gap down. This is a phenomenal climb. It's unbelievable. You have to go and see it sometime if you're out on the Tour of Flanders. You can just imagine 240 kilometres of racing. They go past that chapel on the top, now onto smooth road, just one climb ahead of the Bosberg, which is a long, gradual one, but that still can really sort things out. But these two, I don't think they've really made it though, Paul.
There's still a long way to go, really, you know, in this race. There's still almost half an hour's racing left to go before the finish. Ballerini has done what he wanted to. I think he got rid of, in fact, Rolf Sorensen on that climb just by the pressure. But you can just see now Johan Museeuw a long way down. I make that more than 30 seconds. This man, he wanted to come here. He was looking for a 3rd victory. He wanted to do his World Champions jersey proud in Belgium. He's doing that today because he's a courageous man. He's riding out there, but I do think he's very sorry that he isn't in that group who are attacking the Muur de Grammont.
So this is what you see live on Eurosport. The agonies then of bike racing. People train, they ride to the winter, they get themselves fit, they come and take part in great classic races, they set their ambitions, and suddenly a crash, a puncture, puts you out of contention. And then up in front, somebody has a chance to make a name for himself. And these two riders here, well, Ballerini, ex-winner of the Paris-Roubaix, he's made a name for himself. Van Petegem, a new man on the block now. These two working away, an Italian and a Belgian, but still a lot of riders behind in contention. And Chianri has done nothing so far, eh?
Well, he's been sitting there watching the moves, waiting for everybody else to do a little bit of the work. A sensible move by Max, because he realizes if it does come down to a bunch sprint at the end, and it very well could do because there's only seconds separating these leading riders, he's the man with probably the smartest pair of legs when it comes to sprinting up the finish line here in Meerbeek. Sitting at the back there, but Van Petegem is the man who has a name to make for himself. He's fairly well known in Belgium. He's won 2 races this year, a very good sprinter when it does come down to the big races in Belgium, but he's never really excelled at this kind of event like the Tour of Flanders.
So Van Petegem then just up there at the front, trying to stay away from that group. It looks like he's coming back together. Bosberg is ahead. The Bosberg lies ahead then of these riders, the two men that try to get away, Ballerini and Van Petegem, on that last but one climb. Now going to be reabsorbed by the men they were with earlier on, Sorensen and Casarato, and also coming up here, Bartoli, last year's victor as well. We've been spotting in the midst of that chasing group, French Chianri, who's been sitting at the back of the group. I'm not quite sure whether he's lying doggo, whether he's struggling, or whether he's waiting for the sprint. But this race now, heading in towards the Bosberg. When we get there, still, they will just have some 13 kilometres to go towards the finish. It's still down to any one of, must be what, 12, 10 riders?
All of these riders are still very close together, but you see now this group of 5 starting to form, and they will, I think, start working together very well. Sorensen recovered very well over the top of that climb there. He waited to see who was with him and used Michele Bartoli to drag himself back into the race. A clever rider, a canny rider. He's been at the head of affairs for an awful long time now, but Van Petegem is the man who realizes this is his great chance to take the big victory of the Tour of Flanders back to the Flemish.
So Sorensen used his head to get back. He's now watching the rest of these riders here. Maybe doesn't have the sprinter, something like Van Petegem. What goes on in these chaps' minds then, going in towards the finish like this at the moment, Paul? Because they've all got different attributes, haven't they, hey?
Definitely 1-2 riders. They know that the fact is that they're suffering a little bit. You see Sorensen now has been dropped on the previous climb. He goes to the front to see if anybody's going to give him 5 or 10 meters lead, because he realizes if there's a big attack on this climb, the Bosberg, he may well lose the wheels again. And if he was to lose the wheels on the climb of the Bosberg, he would never see the leading group again. So that's why he dummied them across the road a little bit there. The riders getting organized, but realizing They don't want to do too much work because the finish is coming up quite soon, but they have to do a certain amount to stay away from the other riders behind who have a chance to come back.
Yeah, because we've seen nothing of Ekimov, we've seen nothing of Jamil Occasion, we've seen nothing of Sorensen, of Chandri, so either those riders at the back are a bit stuffed and waiting their chance, or they're going to come on the power as we go up towards that final climb of the day. This is really one of the most open Tour of Flanders I've worked on for an awful long time now, and it's just unbelievable. They all thought that the course being changed, it would blow the thing to pieces, but in fact it's giving us a very interesting race indeed.
Certainly it's been a very dramatic race so far, and these riders now are looking across to try and get other riders to work. Ballerini is not too happy by the fact that these other riders won't work and won't consolidate, and Sorensen, clever rider that he is, has waited for that just pause and he's gone clear. Claudio Chiappucci, though, is the man bringing them all back together. Chiappucci is not a man for Paris-Roubaix, he's not a man for the Tour of Flanders, but he comes up with a performance like this because he's courageous, he always wants to race, and he never gives up.
Somewhere in my notes, he had a couple of second places just recently, this last week. I'm trying to think where it was. That's right, in the week of Sardinia. He was second on one stage, 2 stages, had a second place. So suddenly, he's irrepressible, isn't he? He's always prepared to have a go. But there again, you may be courageous, but this race now, as they're now coming together on this climb here, this is unbelievable.
Well, this is the Bosberg, and this is the leading group now of 12 riders. Maximilian Chianeri is still there, sitting very comfortably at the back indeed. We have to see now if somebody like Franco Ballerini has got the power to go clear. Sitting on the left-hand side of the road is last year's winner, Michele Bartoli. This time last year, he was away on his own in the lead, but now Ballerini realizes this is where Edward van Hooijdonk has caused himself to win. This is Joe Plancart, the famous Plancart family. I've raced with all 3 of his
Uncles,
brothers, 2 of his uncles and 1 of his father.
They're legend. They're the mafia of Belgium. Well, that's the wrong word, but every time you open it, Plancart. Was it one of the Plancarts wouldn't fly anywhere, would he? Eddie? Yes. Here we go.
You see Sorensen here wasn't hiding too much, you know. He's given a lot of himself in this event, and he's suffering over the top of this climb of the Bosberg here. All he has to do now is try and survive and just keep 4 or 5 lengths off the back of that group, because then he can accelerate and stay with them over the top. Ballerini not happy, looking over now to see if somebody else is going to work. Now, this is a dangerous time. We could see a move going from somebody like Ekimov,
yes,
who's in fact moved back up into that group there. Somebody like Claudio Chiappucci, who probably wouldn't have a big chance if it comes down to the sprint. They will try and surprise the sprinters and hope that in fact they can steal a lone lead.
Well, this is brinkmanship, and a lot of young cyclists out there watching this race, Paul, I'm sure they're going to learn a lot from this, because the way in which certain people are prepared just to wait their time and just keep the gap at a certain level, and it's opened up now, and certainly there's Ekimov now 1, 2, 3 to the front. He's known in the last 5 or so kilometres, 3 to 5 kilometres, just go off, and he's unstoppable, isn't he? And he's in good form at the moment. That time trial in the Pyrenees, eh?
Well, let's not forget he was also a former Olympic pursuit champion. He really does know how to ride on his own. He's got good form at the moment, and if he can get away, then it'll be very difficult to pull him back. A great position of a former pursuiter. He's a very strong rider against the clock, and he realizes now, let's not forget, David, he was 4th in this event last year, riding alongside him one of his former teammates from the Russian national squad, Andrei Schmil. But everybody getting nervous. They can feel now the victory of a World Cup race is just around the corner. Chandri, very cold, very calm, waiting for the big sprint, making a point here of not missing the splits. You see Chandri there in 3rd, 4th position on the road there, has seen a dangerous move going clear, so what he's decided to do is jump across it and bridge that gap himself.
But you had a lot of time with Chandri and the Motorola team. He froze in the Leeds Classic, the other got screwed. He seems to freeze occasionally. He was 3rd in the Olympics. He just seems, when it comes down to that final, 300-400 metres, to freeze. Is that a condition of the man? Why?
I think it's a confidence thing. Sometimes he's been in a situation, a lot of riders get into that situation when they realize a split is happening. They don't want to make the move themselves because they feel it might take something away from their sprint when it comes down to the finish. So they wait for somebody else to move. And if you wait and think about that, then the moment's gone and you've lost the race.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed for Chandri for a place in the top 3. We have to go back to 1961 when Tom Simpson was the last British winner of the Tour of Flanders. A great man he was too. He went away that year. He went after 60 miles from the finish and caught up with the leading group. He went again with about 10 miles to go, took De Philippilis with him, and in the end dropped him on the final circuit. In those days we had 3 circuits of the finishing line. 10 kilometres to go now, and the British rider rider in the midst of that group at the moment. Chandri's there. Early on during the race, if you haven't caught up with our coverage of the Tour of Flanders when we started our programme, Jeremy Hunt went away with a breakaway group, about 18 or 20 riders, and had a lead of 1:47, but they got absorbed as the race reformed itself. Ekimov now is doing his typical tactics of trying to go off the front. 10 kilometres to go. Seems to me, Paul, to be a bit early. Normally he's near to 5 to 3, isn't he? Eh?
Well, that's 2 former 5-kilometre pursuits for him, because he did ride the World Professional Pursuit, which used to be over 5 kilometres, and he's gone clear. But the man watching him now is the Russian rider Andrei Shamil. He's come across him. He realises how good Ekimov can be when it comes down to riding on your own, and Shamil came straight up and straight by. But Casarato, in fact, is doing the ride for me, the Skriniar rider in the orange jersey here. He's really risen to the occasion of the Tour of Flanders here. He's been in the moves, he's been aggressive, and all of the time he's been trying to get into the little groups that have been forcing themselves off the front of this leading of group.
Well, Casarato, only 25 years of age. He had some 19 victories in amateur before he turned into pro ranks. This race, though, surely is one which you have experienced 30-something riders, isn't it, Paul? You've got a younger man in the midst of that lot. Right now, is he going to be experienced and going to play a big part?
A little bit of experience, a little bit of luck, and a whole lot of courage, I think. When the legs are starting to hurt, these attacks are coming thick and fast. When you really think, I can't go one more time, that's the time when you have to go. And that is really when you could actually cause a surprise by going clear and having nobody else chase you down.
Well, in that group then, we've got a good spattering of teams. We'll try and pick out some of the colours for you as they head in towards the finish. We've got about 8 kilometres to go now on this Tour of Flanders. 3 men have tried to prize their way off the front of that group, and at long last we're seeing 1 or 2 men here, like Moncassin, who we tried to pick earlier on, Paul, the likely winner of this race. Sorensen's been in action all the way through. Ballerini's back in here, but the freshest of this little lot must be Moncassin.
Well, we haven't seen a lot of Moncassin for the last 10 or 20 kilometres. He was in that group with his teammate Hem Vogels, doing a very good job indeed. A lot of people tipped him, including yourself, before the start of this event. And if this group of 3 riders does stay clear, well, then I'd have to put Moncassin down as the winner. But the race is not over yet. There's still 8 kilometres left to race, and a lot of things could happen. Chandri now there, moving up into 3rd or 4th position, starting to feel twitchy because he can see the victory just a little bit round the corner there. He can see, in fact, it's slipping away from him.
So what a lot of riders we've got in here with a shout for this victory. When they come in toward the finish, where the crowd now is gathered in the sunshine, beating down. Who would have thought here in Flanders this time of the year, normally a grotty, grubby time of the year, with we've known snow, we've had bad rain and cold conditions. Lovely sunshine today, and the crowd waiting on the finishing line for this group of riders to arrive. Disappointment for the Belgians that Museeuw, who had that crash just down the road, has now lost his chance of coming in with a victory. Van Petegem is still in there, though. Look at that little run down there, and the Belgian flag is there. 105 Van Petegem. Plancart there, 175. He's a useful sprinter as well. But Maximilian Chandri for Great Britain, he's got a good turn of speed. If it comes down to bunch sprint from these riders, this crowd here on the finishing line will erupt to see if the Belgian can take it. But it's going to be anybody's race here. That 3-man group still trying down the road to prize their way, using up a lot of energy. Sorensen's been trying for a long time. He knows he can't sprint. Amazing though, Moncassin there in the GAN colours of blue and white on the front at the moment is a sprinter. What's he doing there?
Well, he's a sprinter, but he's also a tough rider too. He's, in fact, cast your mind back, he used to ride for Rabobank, and he used to be sent to ride a lot of the Belgian races. He won Kern-Brussels-Kern a few years ago in a snowstorm, so he's a tough rider. He knows how to ride in Belgium. He's also very agile, so when you have to be at the front to come to the bottom of these mountains, these cobble climbs, the mountains of Flanders they call them, he knows how to place himself correctly in the line there. He doesn't use up too much energy and uses his sprinting ability to keep him in a good place all of the time, which is why now we're finding him a sprinter at the front of a very tough Tour of Flanders. The race is far from over, but it looks to me, David, as if the impetus is starting to go out of this chasing group now.
Well, when they come in towards the finish, they turn sharp right, and it's a bit of an uphill sprint, maybe about 300-400 metres on a long, gradual drag. It isn't one of your flat things that would suit an out-and-out true sprinter. It's going to be for the hard men who can stay away. This little group, you're quite right, Paul, at the moment, recognise they've got to do something about pulling that one back. They're a disparate group. They're all from different teams, but I suppose, again, nobody wants to burn himself out because they have to sprint while they got left in their legs. Kipucci, no sprinter, must try and do something. Shamil, no sprinter, must try and do something. There must be some of the guys that we have to pull this back, surely.
Well, the time is coming now when, in fact, they feel that it's getting too close to the finish to close it down for somebody else. But all the time, what they're also hoping for is that there'll be a certain amount of animosity starts to creep into this leading group of 3 riders. Ballerini will be looking across at Frederic Moncassin, thinking about the sprints that this man has won in the Tour de France. Sorensen, he'll know, is a very wily rider. The responsibility to win for Mappé is on his shoulders, so he'll start to miss a turn now and again. They may well slow down their impetus a little bit, and that's all that the group behind can hope for.
That's Ballerini in the blue and white. That's Moncassin in the white jersey for Gunn. That on the front there, the orange and white just peel off, as I talked about him, was Sorensen. Pick your favourites now if they can stay away from these three. Certainly of the sprinters then, Moncassin probably has the edge if they can stay out there now. 17 seconds is the gap. It's grown from 9 as we get in towards the back end of this, the 81st Tour of Flanders. 240 kilometres a day. The sun's been blazing down on them. A new course, twisting and turning, which has destroyed many people's ambitions, including that of Museeuw, who had the misfortune to clash with Boscardin and has been chasing ever since, and he's not made this pack at the moment, so the reigning world champion and the World Cup winner from last year is not in with a shout. Another man we've not seen anything of this race so far is the Bell, hot-tipped to be in with a shout at the end of it all. He's not in there either, so quite a big change coming up perhaps on the overall World Cup, and what an interesting year we've got, because after this race we're going to give you on Eurosport the Game Telekom this coming Wednesday. Then next Sunday we're on air live with the Paris-Roubaix. 4 hours of action. My co-commentator then will be Sean Yates. I'm happy to have Paul Sherwin with me now. And then we go on to the next of the big classics, Flèche Wallonne on Wednesday week, and finish off with Liège, Bastogne-Liège, and then the Amstel Gold. Cracking bike racing live on Eurosport. At the moment this is anybody's race. Sit tight and watch it, and if these three stay away, my money's going on Moncassin. What do you say, Paul?
Well, I think I would have to be, if I was a betting man, put money on Moncassin as well. But when it comes down to a three-man sprint and the two other guys know that you're a very good sprinter, you can make mistakes. Moncassin is a strong man. He knows how to win the sprint here, but winning a bunch sprint is a different approach to winning a group sprint from just 3 riders. And now he's starting to get twitchy. He realizes he's the fastest man, but a little move like this, when a gap opens by Franco Ballerini on a slight rise to the finish, could in fact steal the show away from Moncassin. These riders now, you can see Ballerini realizes he could feel the presence of Sorensen on his wheel there, so he sits up and forces him to come to the front. Moncassin now in second position. He's just trying to control it. He wants this group to stay together as 3 men. He doesn't want anybody to jump away, because when you get close to the finish, if there is an attack, then the other rider who's left behind will force Moncassin to close down the gap.
One thing about Moncassin, though, in sprinting, he's been known for not having lead-outs in his team. He's had to do his own thing. So perhaps, I mean, if this was, I don't know, something who was a sprinter always get led out in that little group, he'd probably feel a bit exposed. But Moncassin's had to learn his own sprinting, hasn't he?
Most certainly, he does know how to handle himself, and when it comes down to the final wind up to the line, I'm sure a man like the big Italian Franco Ballerini, he'll start to wind it up from a long way, because he's not a good sprinter. You remember how he was beaten just on the line in that sprint by Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle in one Paris-Roubaix. He will be thinking about that. That really stung him to be beaten there. He thought he was the strongest man, but what he'll try and do is use his power, because he doesn't have pure speed, and that could be exactly what is going to play into the hands of Moncassin. The gap now out to 28 seconds. I think we're going to see the Tour of Flanders go to one of these men.
So then, as far as the Belgians are concerned, they're not going to get a victory from a Belgian, because we've got in there Ballerini from Italy, there on the top of your screen, Moncassin from France, Sorensen from Denmark, and the Danes, what a small country it is, just what, 5.5 million people, got last year's Tour de France victor in Berendries. Now they've got Sorensen, a man who's worn the yellow jersey in the Tour de France when also he crashed out and broke his collarbone and lost it. Well, the Danes producing yet again another top bike rider.
We'll just wait for this, David, because you see there, Ballerini dropped off the back a little bit as we go under the banner with 3 kilometres remaining. He dropped off the back, and I thought he was teeing himself up to try and launch a lone attack there. He was just taking time to see what the strengths and the weaknesses were of the other riders in this group. And I think he's going to try something when we get into the final few kilometres. He knows this course very well. He knows that when we come in to the town of Meerbeek, he has to take a right turn. He's got that banner that will show him 1 kilometre remains, and then at the end of that straight he turns right, and it's a very tough climb up to the finish here. It doesn't look like it, but if you try walking up it, I'm sure you'll end up getting out of breath.
Well, I understand you've got to nip off with 2 kilometres to go, Paul, and do some work out there. Don't get carried away sitting here on Eurosport. You've got other things to do. Thank you for your support so far and your assistance, and I'm sure the people back at home will say thank you very much indeed. We enjoyed having you on the programme. The change from talking to you on the telephone over the years, have you sat beside me, we worked together in the past. fast, and right now we're going to watch a very interesting finish. So, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Would you like to just make one prediction before you go? And that, if I'm not going to, because you think kiss of death.
Now, I'm pretty sure Moncassin's got a great chance of winning this, but I would think at this stage of the game, the only prediction I would like to make is the fact that Sean Yates is going to be commentating with you next week.
Thank you for joining me. If old Sean's listening to that too as well, he'll say thank you likewise. And thanks for that, Paul. Look forward to working with you again. I'm sure the people back at home will appreciate what Paul Chauvin's been saying here as we get into all those final 2 kilometres now, with the chips are down between these 3 riders. If Sorensen gets it, then that's going to be the first Danish rider ever, according to my notes here, to win the Tour of Flanders since 1913. The French rider on the front at the moment, Moncassin, well, Jackie Durand won in 1992 after that enormously long lone breakaway when he went with Wegmuller, then dropped Wegmuller coming in towards the finish, and Van Hooydonk, Eddie Bosberg himself, finished in 3rd spot. We have to go back as far as the French are concerned to 1956 when Forestier took the victory then. As far as the Italians are concerned with Ballerini, well, they got it last year with Bartoli, and in 1994 Bugno got it. In fact, the Italians were first to break the stranglehold of the Belgians when Magni won the race in 1949, 1950 and 1951. So we're now getting to the point where they're going to turn right, and suddenly Ballerini starts to go away. He realises he can't allow Moncassin to sit on his wheel. Can he open up a gap? They're going to turn sharp right here. They then go along the main road before they get to the final right turn. There's no more than about, what, 500, 600 metres to the next right turn, and then they'll be up the finishing straight into where this massive crowd is waiting to see if the Danish rider Sorensen on the left can get it. And these two now are a bit worried about Sorensen. He's been away. He started the activity when he went away with Jalabert, who got a dose of the bonk and got really blasted out. But Sorensen showing enormous recovery here to go away inside the final 2Ks, and neither these two want to chase it down. Ballerini knows if he takes Moncassin up, that Moncassin can get the sprint. Is Ballerini prepared to sacrifice the chance of victory now to stop Moncassin getting it? And so Sorensen, who really is a man, I think, that deserves this victory. In fact, they all deserve it. It's been a tremendous victory, tremendous ride. If we have 1, 2 and 3 across the line together, no, we can't do it. Somebody has to win. It could be Sorensen. He's taken the bull by the horns. He's now going away up the finishing straight, the long drag up here, and Ballerini has done the right thing. He shut the door on the sprint specialist Moncassin. We're now going to get the first ever Danish victory in the Tour of Flanders. I know a lot of people in Denmark listen to Eurosport, listen to the English version. To all my good friends out there, okay, open up whatever it is you celebrate with, because they're going to get the first ever Danish victory, according to my notes, in the Tour of Flanders. As Sorensen rides into a well-deserved victory. His team manager Taaienberg this morning said to me, watch Sorensen, and my goodness, I wish I'd gone to the bookies, because he was right. Sorensen took the victory. Moncassin was second, and in 3rd spot, Ballerini, 42.59 kilometres per hour. 6 hours of racing as the rest of the riders coming in here now. Chamil then coming up into 4th place, and Caderato taking on to 5th, and Claudio Capucci into 6th, then Bartoli, last year's victor, into 7th. They come across the line now, but the rest of the field will be coming in dribs and drabs later on, but the crowd here waiting at the finish line will be looking down the road to see where is Johan Museeuw, who had the misfortune to have that problem when he clashed with Boscardin, put him out of contention. That's bike racing for you. Imagine all those hours of bike riding, and suddenly things happen. But look at the celebrations on your screen. Here we get Sorensen coming in to take the victory. He's already now being clasped to the bosom of one of his team helpers in the finishing straight, and everybody applauding what has turned out to be a superb performance by this Danish rider, one of the most experienced men in the peloton, and now he's taken the first victory, according to my notes, for Denmark ever in the Tour of Flanders since 1913. I don't think they can believe it, by the way, here. I'm waiting to catch up with Taaienberg this morning, who tipped him as a likely winner. Most of the team managers say, watch out for my man, he's in good form. But this fellow really has done well today. And not far off his birthday, by the way. He's born on the 20th of April 1965. And I understand that a lot of riders perform very well near to their birthdays. And so he's coming up then to what's at his 32nd birthday. And he's scored a great success here to take the victory in the Tour of Flanders. There he is on your screen right now. Winner last year, the Brussels-Kern won a stage in the Tour de France, the 13th stage, unlucky for some last year, but he was unlucky when he crashed out the Tour de France 2 years ago, breaking his collarbone when he had the yellow jersey. But look at the joy on his face. He's got that great victory in the Tour of Flanders. Well, he won the Les Bastogne way back in 1993, and now he's adding this other classic Belgian race to his list of, they call the Palmares. I hope with me you savoured that moment of glory on his face, and now this is the bit when all the press descend upon you for a quote after you've ridden what has been a very tactical race, I think. And certainly there's no need, it says here, a finished photo. What we saw when Gianni Bugno pipped past Museeuw in 1994, we need the photo finish camera there. There was no more than about 5 or 6 inches between the two of them, but there's no doubt about it with the victor today. Sorensen clearly winning the race. A look back at the final kilometre when Sorensen charged off on the left-hand side, and for a moment Ballerini decided he wouldn't chase that one down because Moncassin of the three was undoubtedly the best sprinter, and that allowed him to go away. Ballerini knew he hadn't got it in his legs to catch the man, so Sorensen rode out victor in this Tour of Flanders, with Moncassin out-sprinting Ballerini in for the second and third spot. What a finish. Great success for the Dane, Ralph Sorensen.
And hold on a moment, we have a late breaking update. There's been a new occurrence of the worldwide shrinking phenomenon. Yesterday it was the Empire State Building and the Eiffel Tower, but now we've just received word from London that Big Ben has become Little Ben. It seems like everything is getting smaller. The pyramids, the Taj Mahal and the Grand Canyon, now referred to as Canyon. The Ericsson rumours persist, although they deny any involvement, but sources point to the launch of an all-new mobile phone. The Ericsson GF788, so small it will change your perspective.
So ein Auto habe ich noch nie gesehen.
Wie sah es denn aus?
Toll, ganz toll.
Ich meine besonderes Kennzeichen.
6 Leute passen rein, alle auf Einzelsitzen.
Also ein Bus. Oder ein Van.
Nee, kleiner, so groß wie ein Kombi.
6 Leute, Einzelsitze, so klein wie ein PKW, und gefahren ist der Verrückte aus der Toyota-Werbung.
Genau der war's.
Der neue Toyota, der Picknick, ohne Wenn und Aber.
In Ireland, as long as there's a drop of Jameson, there'll never be an empty glass. Share the warmth of Jameson Irish whiskey.
Back live to the Cycling World Cup 97 with Licher Pilsner.
The rest of the field coming in then, just led across the line by the man in the leader's jersey for the World Cup, and he's coming well down. That was Eric Zabel of the Telekom team. You can see the congratulations going on in the finishing area here for Sorensen, the victor of the race today. And he's come into this race in fine form after his success in the 3 days at Japan. The whole Rabobank team absolutely overjoyed with that one. And of course, Holland not being far down the road from the finish here of the Tour of Flanders. A lot of Dutchmen have made the trip to watch the race here, and now the interview is going on with Van Petegem of the TVM team. Belgium looking for a chance of victory here. Already this season he'd been in such fine form, winning the Het Volk. He tried so hard, but it was not going to be. There we are, Farm Frites on his jersey. Well, we've been celebrating as ever with the old Farm Frites and the drop of the Stella to wash it down. I've enjoyed having Paul Sherman with me in the commentary booth. We've got a lot of cycling coming up on Eurosport, by the way, in this next couple of weeks or so. And I hope you'll stay with us to watch all these big classics coming up, because we've got, as you can see on your screen now, Game Verbogen on Wednesday, and then we're going to look at the legend of the Paris-Roubaix on Thursday. We actually have the Paris-Roubaix on Sunday, when Sean Yates will be joining me, best British finisher in recent years in 5th spots. He'll be able to put us in the picture as Paul Schoen has done today on the Tour of Flanders. So looking down there as Sorensen goes away, that's next week's cycling, by the way, but don't forget we go on into the following week with the Flèche Wallonne, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which Sorensen won in the past, and then we finish off with the Amstel Gold before the big tours come up, and we're going to be doing the Tour of Switzerland, the Tour of Catalonia, and our camera, they're not following all the excitement of the finishing straight here where Sorensen goes down there. We've got our Dutch television friends here picking up the Dutchman who was in with the shout, but now we're picking up then Sorensen going for his victory celebrations up on the rostrum. We've also got, by the way, the Tour of Romandy coming up on Eurosport in May. We're going to do, one day on the Thursday, and the final Saturday and Sunday as well. So there's plenty of cycling for you, big fans of the sports, more than we've had in many years in the past, and I'm sure you're going to sit back and enjoy what we have for you, because, of course, the big Tour de France, which starts at Rouen, and I hope many Brits will go over there to see what Chris Boardman can do in that event. So, Sorensen, the victor, 1993, he had 15 first places. He's had also a quiet time since then. He's had a number of firsts here, there and everywhere. Stayed in the Tour de France last year, of course, in 1996. Stayed in the Tour of the Netherlands as well, Kuurne, Brussels, Kuurne, what have you, but he came in with good form after 3 days of the Pound. And so the Belgians, who were hoping for a victory in what is their race as such, now are not in with a shout at all. Another little look here at the Lotto team, where Chamir was the driving force in that chasing group, but it didn't quite work out as far as he was concerned, and so the Belgian rider from the Chamil team here, Plancart, couldn't unleash his finishing sprint at the end of it all, because all over and done with a good tiny move by Sorensen. I've been interested to find out later on what actually happened to Laurent Jalabert. I know he's got tremendous support from cyclists across Europe, but the man suddenly faded when he looks so strong, and that is one of the things that can happen to bike riders. You must judge your effort perfectly all right. I think somehow that Sorensen, honestly, he's overcome with emotion at the moment, but for the first Dane to win the Tour of Flanders since 1913, it must be an enormous moment for him. But he timed it exactly right, and that's what sport's all about, is to know when to go. And of course, when you don't win, I won't say excuses are the name, but you have to explain what went on as best you can do. But who can describe the problems of riding an event like this? Over those 15 climbs across the short, sharp hills in Flanders, over a total distance of some 256 kilometers. I'm just waiting for the next, that's it, there you are, the confirmation of that result on your screens there. Those three that broke away in the last 8 kilometres or so: Sorensen, Moncassin and Ballerini 1, 2 and 3. Chamil, he looked like he might be a man to watch out for, but in the end missed that little break, and so it's down to Sorensen to take the victory. I said to you earlier on, massive crowd in this finishing area. By the way, those banners on the left-hand side and right-hand side, quite fascinating. They've got behind them, like, obviously, enormous balloons, but they've actually inflated the back of the banners, so if anybody crashed into the barriers, they would bounce off the inflatable advertising hoard. And it's a very good thing, because particularly those who may watch the Milan-San Remo, when there's a big crash which brought down Jalabert, Museeuw and Chandry, and we've seen things like Tour of France when Andrew Jaffroff demolished the barriers as well. But the barriers can be a bit painful by inflating the supports on either side, putting the banners on. Then if you do bump into them, you'll bounce off. But this man had no doubt about it. He didn't need a sprint finish with lots of riders pushing and shoving around him. Sorensen took off just before the final kilometre and rode in so confidently. He'd been in the action right the way through those final few kilometres. He looked strong. He timed his break to perfection. He's got the victory. He's got the Victor's Cup there, and the moment he'll get the Victor's Bouquet as well. A quick check will have to be taken out on the points score in the World Cup, and here we are. I'm just about to do it. They've done it for us. So they are. Sorensen has got 124 points. Sebel back in second spot with 100. Ellie in third. So Sorensen takes over the lead in the World Cup as well. After Sebel took the Milan-San Remo and took with it the leader's jersey in the World Cup. Now he's lost it to Sorensen, who will take it forward into the Paris-Roubaix. I'm not sure if he's riding the Paris-Roubaix, but I certainly wouldn't have thought that he's going to, as he put his foot in it again, perhaps come out in the top half dozen in the Paris-Roubaix. But Sorensen will be jolly good when we get to things like Liège-Bastogne-Liège and the Amstel Gold. So in the next 3 weeks or so, we'll be able to go, before we start the big tours, into a little bit of a gap in the World Cup to see who's got that jersey to carry it through. And Sorensen could be in there with a shout. He could do on the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, could do on the Amstel Gold, but the Paris-Roubaix coming up next is a real one-off race, and goodness knows who's going to get that one. So there we are, up on the roster then. Sorensen the victor, Moncassin in second spot, and Ballerini third, as we look back in a slow motion of Sorensen crossing the line to take the 1997 Tour of Flanders, the first Danish rider ever to do so since 1913. Coming up next, Sports Centre, with all the news of sporting activity across Europe. For myself, David Duffield, thank you for joining me, and my co-commentator today, Paul Sherwin. We've enjoyed the sunshine, we've enjoyed the racing. I hope you have done so as well, and you'll join us again for cycling on Wednesday. Until then, it's time for me to say to you all, bye-bye.